All right, let's break this thing down. We got a three-gamer today. I think that you're going to end up seeing a lot of variability. So I'm just going to take it one team at a time, try to explain what you're going to look for, the key players that we're going to need to be in on, and try to figure out generally what how we're going to play this, depending on each individual who is either active or inactive, but there's going to be a ton of movement that you're going to have to keep up with. In fairness, I do think the Toledo Louisville game is kind of to an extent irrelevant on this slate. I prefer like you're going to want exposure to Ohio and UNLV. It's a huge over under and a huge total in that one. More certainty as far as who's going to play to an extent. Obviously, there's one guy that we're going to have to pay close attention to in that one, but quite a few that we feel pretty good about there. And then the Western Kentucky Southern Miss game. That one's interesting. That one's got a bigger total. But like I said, let's just take them one team at a time. So starting out with Toledo, Tucker Gleason is going to be out. We do know that Caleb Osborne is going to play. He's a mobile runner, gets a good amount of yards per carry. True freshman, though, playing against the Louisville defense that is pretty stout in this spot is not exactly something that we need. Ultimately, you get a running quarterback at mid price, great. On a normal slate, I'd be all over this. In this situation, I don't think you need to go here because Louisville does not give up a ton of points overall. And what are you getting is the $1 million question in this spot, right? What are you paying up for? A lot of the guys that you normally would pay up for aren't really available. And I think raw points are going to matter more than the ability to get there. So, for instance, let's just take Anthony Calandria, for example. His raw points projection is roughly in the mid 20s, whereas the raw points projection on what was Tucker Gleason, but now with being Osborne is more in the mid teens. So it's like a 10-point raw differential. And that probably is going to end up needing to, in reality, be adjusted even more with a 19-point team total. So I don't want to take the risk of Osborne. I would probably rank him in the 4 or 5 range. I do not know his pricing on FanDuel. I have not looked at that whatsoever, but I don't think it's particularly going to matter because I think plenty of value is going to open up in this spot, which is going to lead me to not wanting to get too much exposure to Osborne in this situation. I think the sacks on him and the kind of going backwards is going to negate the upside you'd have from his rushing ability, thus making him not an extremely great option for me on the back end. Yeah, I mean, even offensive line play is not particularly great for them. And then Louisville is one of the better pass rush defenses, run defenses. Like there's not a lot of success that has been found against this defense previously. Now, granted, they lose Wesley Bailey and Renee Conga. They're not going to be in for this game. But they still have plenty of good guys along that front seven specifically. And, it depends on where they're at on the back end. But I still think that it's not an optimal matchup for Osborne in this spot. Chip Trainum, I do have concerns that he ends up opting out. One of the better players, running backs in the country. But this is a stout run defense, very stout run defense. Same reasoning as to why we're not super into Osborne from the rushing standpoint. Trainum's been banged up throughout his career. Does he really want to, play in this bowl preparation, bowl game? He has been practicing with the team for bowl prep, but how much work does he get? It's very similar matchup to the quarterback wise. It's one of the top 20 rush defenses in the country. Do you really want to take the risk and going train them in this spot at 7,500? I think there's better places to spend your money ultimately on that end. If he ended up sitting, I think Kenji Christian would be the starter right at 4,500. Not the worst play in the world because of his receiving upside. He does have the capability to catch the ball pretty good. But, I mean, there's a difference between running for 100 yards against Kent State and running for 100 yards against Louisville. It would not be the way that I am looking to go. My favorite play on Toledo would be Junior Vander Ross, an absolute game breaker at wide receiver. I don't know if Vander Ross or Rudolph are going to end up playing in this spot. Vander Ross probably ends up in the portal and dips his toe there after 2 successful years and having 1 year left on his college career. It's just, do you really want to get exposure to him with a third string quarterback, potential 20-mile-an-hour upwards winds, a 19-point team total? There's a lot to not like there. So I would rather spend my money in other places personally. And that's kind of where, and I still don't know that he wouldn't opt out. Very similar to Traven Rudolph. Don't know that he won't opt out. You never know. So if those two were not there, you could take a shot on Ryder Treadway. He ran the most routes in the month of November, and he's kind of been on the field a good bit. Is he going to be productive? Who knows? Treadway is 3K right here. So if you wanted to take a shot, I wouldn't hate it. His volume could go up if we get word that Vander Ross sits out. I'm probably going to end up fading Louisville, but I'm going to wait and see the news come about 12:30, 12:45 to make a decision on if I want to jam Treadway for a reason. Once we build our team, we'll probably end up with a flex and a wide receiver spot left, and I'll make some decisions on that end. But as far as what combos I'm kind of looking at, and we'll build our base out, and then we'll figure out on the back end where we kind of want to go in this spot. Although I'm just not sure who's going to end up playing, from the wide receiver standpoint. So that's kind of the tricky part there. Moving over to that Louisville side, I really don't love this game. Miller Moss is going to start in this spot. He's my least favorite quarterback on the slate. I know he's probably going to play, but I really don't know that Deuce Adams won't get plenty of run as well. Like, why not play Deuce Adams in this spot to get him some experience? Miller Moss is gone after this year. So I have zero interest in Miller Moss. I would prefer to play the Toledo kid. I'd prefer to play both quarterbacks in this game. I prefer both of these games. He's the sixth best quarterback on the slate for me. So Miller Moss is a no-go as far as I'm concerned. And then we enter question land. So the only reports we have to this point are that Jeff Brom hopes one of the running backs plays. One of the scholarship running backs plays. That's all he said. He hopes one of Kewan Brown, Isaac Brown, or Duke Watson plays. But at this point, why? They're all banged up. They're all not. It just doesn't make sense to rush any of them back. I don't think any of them end up playing. If one of them played, they'd be my favorite play in this game. So ultimately, it'd be one of them. Personally, you're really going to end up looking at, I think I'm going to end up playing one of these backs, depending on who's healthy and who's active, no matter what. So Jennings ran for 100 yards in this game. I'd understand if you go there. I would prefer to go Boykins. He also ran for 100 yards, ran for a touchdown. Similar carry count for the two in the Kentucky game when they were forced into action. But Boykins had 8 carries in the red zone compared to 3 for Jennings. So I would prefer to go Boykins in this spot at 4K. That's where I would lean if I was going to take a shot on a Louisville running back if we get word that Brown, and Watson are all out. But that is going to have to be the news you watch for, because any of those three is active, they are probably the lead guy. I just think Boykins would be my favorite behind them in this spot. And they're probably just going to run the football a lot, given the context of it. Wide receiver wise, we know Chris Bell is gone and out. This is going to get very hairy. So if Deuce Knight ends up playing, things get weird. Miller Moss plays. We've seen him have a 6-touchdown game against Louisville previously. So where do we go at wide receiver? I would say Colin Lacey is the likely top answer in this situation. He should get peppered with targets. So I probably would lean on that being my top option. Does he opt out? It's not impossible that Colin Lacey would opt out. He should be the top guy. But Colin Lacey was banged up late in the year. He is a possible opt out. You don't know. It could go any number of ways. So he's a guy that you're going to have to keep an eye on as well to make sure that he ends up playing. Depending, no matter what, realistically, because Lacey plays in the slot, your outside wide receivers are going to be the next men up. That is going to be some combination of Dakari Collins, who scored a touchdown in that Louisville game, in that Kentucky game, and Antonio Meeks, right? Yeah, Antonio Meeks would be the second guy in that rotation. And my personal favorite guy that I was high on from last year coming into this year, I believe he was at San Jose State a year ago, had a good year, showed really well late, is Trayshawn Hurry. I am a Trayshawn Hurry guy. If I'm taking a shot on any of them, because of my priors and my personal bias, it is Trayshawn Hurry. That's not to say that he's played the most. I would say Collins and Meeks, they did start that game, but Hurry played 63% of the snaps in that one. So, I don't know what ends up happening to the rest of the Toledo secondary. They did have one of the starting safeties opt out already. The question is does the rest of the secondary opt out as well? It's possible. So for me personally, I like playing one of the Louisville running backs if I'm playing anybody. I don't mind playing Colin Lacey if he's active. And then after that, my favorite would be Trayshawn Hurry, just on personal preference and kind of what I know about that roster overall. So I don't mind Trayshawn Hurry if you want to take a shot in that spot. But I mean, like I said, that game's completely dependent on who's playing in that one. So it's going to come down to Louisville running back is probably my preference play. But running back is such a weird spot today. It's such a weird spot. So wide receiver, equally as strange anyway. All right, Western Kentucky taking on Southern Miss. Rodney Tisdale is going to be your starter. Maverick McIver kind of started out very hot and let me down as the season went on. I mean, he started out with 401-3, and that was the peak. That was it. What a disappointment that was. Rodney Tisdale's picked up the slack. He's got a little bit of mobility, but against Southern Miss, I wouldn't really particularly count on that. I'm not particularly interested in Rodney Tisdale. He's going to be low owned. I doubt anybody plays that spot. I do like some other pieces in this spot though. Given this game's played in a dome, it's got a 57.5 over under, so you got to feel at least a little bit solid on that spot. But you got a lot of defensive opt-outs potentially for Southern Miss. I think you're more likely to keep the offense for Southern Miss in this one. So I think the defense ends up opting out for that Southern Miss roster, which is going to give you a little bit more opportunity for Western Kentucky to be able to do some stuff. Now, they're going to have some opt-outs in their own right, especially on the back end of the defense and a little bit in the offensive line spots potentially. So it really kind of comes down to who's going to play in this one again. Um, we'll talk about the running backs. I'm not interested in Tisdale. He'd be at best the fourth quarterback or fifth, maybe, on the slate for me overall. So Lavelle Wright is in the portal. He's the better runner of the bunch. This Southern Miss defense has been gashed on the ground. Now, problem is, Western Kentucky, not exactly known as a running team. I am a Marvis Parrish guy. He sold me in the first game of the year when he had 6 catches for 58 yards out of nowhere at 3K. I like the floor that this kid gives. He's going to catch a lot of balls and he has some rushing upside. He just has struggled mightily. He hadn't found the end zone since the first game of the season, and he hadn't found the end zone at all on the ground. Question mark is, does Lavelle Wright start in this one? Lavelle Wright has 11 touchdowns, most of which, all but one, 10 of those, have come on the ground. Lavelle Wright being in the portal is interesting because typically this Tyson Helton team has allowed portal players to play. We've ended up seeing this for the last few years. If you're in the portal, they still let you play in the bowl game. Does Lavelle Wright play is the $1 million question. I probably would prefer to go Louisville running back over Western Kentucky back in this spot because of it. And I'll choose to play Western Kentucky through the wide receiver / tight ends if I was probably going to in this spot, just because of the uncertainty here. Because even then, George Hart could get a bunch of work. If Mavis Parrish, I think Parrish is definitely going to play, so you can feel pretty good in that spot. But ultimately, it's going to be, does Wright play? All right, if Wright plays, then now I'm in a 3-way split to an extent. George Hart, we know, is going to get work. Mavis Parrish, we know, is going to get work. What's the upside here? Whereas on the Louisville side, if, at best, one of those 3 studs is going to play, but I doubt any of them do. So now all the work's going to fall on that backfield. So I feel pretty good about going in that direction personally. Now, on the Louisville side, on the Southern Miss side of things, as far as the defense goes, they have given up some big receiving performances over the last 4 weeks to end the year. I think getting exposure to these wide receivers is probably a good idea. This is a passing offense. We got to remember that. And it comes down to me to Matthew Henry, Katie Hutchinson, Musa Berry. And they're all pretty good options. They kind of move it around a little bit. And like I said, with Southern Miss, this defense kind of collapsed towards the end of the year. They were giving up a high yards per attempt over the last couple of weeks. They've had multiple guys from the back end that are probable potential opt-outs in this spot. We've seen this before with the Charles Huff team. Marshall, very similarly, had a ton of opt-outs a year ago because of the defenders, because of the him moving from Marshall to Southern Miss. Charles Huff, again, going MIA as for a second straight season, going to Memphis. Smart move for him, went up again. But offensive coordinator Blake Anderson is going to stay and be the interim coach and the head coach next season. So I expect the offense to be more loyal to him, whereas Charles Huff and the defense probably tend to move on to that Memphis spot a little bit easier. Now, we talked about Katie Hutchinson, Matthew Henry, Musa Berry. I would throw Noah Myers in there as well. Southern Miss, not particularly great defending the tight end. Is this a spot that I really want to take a shot? I mean, maybe if I ended up in that spot at 4,100 in a wide receiver position, that's potentially there. Ultimately, I would say you're trying to decide, do I want Katie Hutchinson, who's going to get a ton of target volume, he gets a ton of work, and is extremely capable of popping a big play, albeit he hadn't had a big game in quite a bit. We were high on him early in the year. He's been kind of mediocre, in my opinion. The upside is very clearly Matthew Henry. I love this kid's skill set. He was a guy that impressed me a ton in that opening game against Sam Houston in week 0. I was high on him coming out of that. He's kind of had his ups and downs. You see the two big games, New Mexico State and Middle Tennessee State. Man, I think I would lean Matthew Henry as my favorite play. Personally, Musa Berry's going to step up in there and be annoying, basically. But other than that, I'm a Henry guy personally. If you want upside, you want a wide receiver 1, it's Matthew Henry. You want the floor, I think you go Katie Hutchinson. I would lean Matthew Henry. I'm probably going to end up with him in my lineup as one of the guys that I want. All right, Southern Miss wise. Western Kentucky, not a great defense. We know that some of their guys have gone away. Some of their coaching staff on defense definitely is now gone. I know they've kind of moved around and definitely lost their defensive staff is for sure going away. They do have some guys in the portal already, but we do know that, that they're going to end up with guys in the portal. They're probably going to play. It just kind of depends on them. They allow that. So it's a little bit awkward situation there. Quarterback wise, I think Braylon Braxton is probably the 3rd best quarterback in this spot because he still has the offensive coordinator and Blake Anderson. He's kind of gets to play whatever he wants to play. Western Kentucky, not exactly great. I think Braxton's a solid play. If you want to go there, he was banged up towards the end of the year. That's kind of limited him. I would say he's the 3rd best quarterback play on this slate. It's very possible he ends up running for, 30, 40 yards, maybe finds the box, throws a couple touchdowns, ends up in the 20s. I don't think he's going to necessarily have a ton of volume, but Blake Anderson has put up some really good numbers in his systems more often than not. Does he opt out? Probably not. I feel pretty decent about that, but not necessarily the way that I'm going to end up attacking it. If you want low ownership on a quarterback, though, that's your guy. I don't hate going that direction whatsoever. 2-game slate. I mean, you'll be able to kind of infer where I'm going with this when we get there. Jeffrey Pittman, good back. The problem is in this spot specifically is Western Kentucky's good at kind of bottling teams up. They are pretty bad at allowing explosives. Now, the problem with that is, if you look at Jeffrey Pittman's year here, his longest carry on the season is 25 yards. So you have a defense that gives up explosives facing a running back who can't get explosives. I don't see, maybe Pittman breaks one off, but that's not his forte. So personally, I'm avoiding Jeffrey Pittman. I think he's a high floor, low ceiling type play. Matt Jones being the backup, no thank you. Wide receiver wise, this is where we start getting into some interesting things. So Western Kentucky is very much so a red zone roulette defense. They love to let you get down the field and then stop you in the red zone. So there's going to be yards accumulated for sure with this offense. There's one guy that's probably going to get peppered with targets, and that's Elijah Metcalf. Metcalf, 6 catches, 10 catches, 5 catches, 7 catches. I would not be shocked if we see another 10-catch game out of Metcalf in this spot. So he's going to be your target hog. I think they just pepper him with targets, get you down the field, and maybe he's able to pop one. I will be playing Metcalf in my lineup, no question about it. Carl Chester, your second best option. He's been hit or miss, hot over the last 2 weeks. I think that ends up garnering him more ownership than it probably should. I'm not super enthused with Chester in this spot. It's just not my favorite player. Personally, I'd much prefer Metcalf, but there's reasonable situation to say. So I'm just going to take the top option in each offense, in my opinion, on the wide receiver side in this game. Otherwise, I'm not super interested in the wideouts. They kind of rotate through. Micah Davis is going to get a decent amount of work as well on the field, but they rotate so much. I don't love it. I was high on Braylon Brown coming into the year. Major disappointment for me personally. So those are my two favorites out of that one. All right. I think y'all all kind of know at this point where we're going. So the one certainty on this slate that I know at quarterback is Calandria has already said he's coming back. Now, Ohio, typically a good defense, but difference is this game is in Frisco, Texas, and it's warm down here right now. We've got a head coach of Ohio that's been fired. I don't know that we see many opt-outs in this game, personally. That I feel pretty good about that, that we won't see opt-outs in this spot. Not a ton of guys that are banged up. If anything, I hope the opt-outs are on the defensive sides of the ball. Calandria's been very good. He's just, he's the whoopsie daisy king for a reason. He makes mistakes. We know this. I think both sides are going to move the football because UNLV's offense is magnitudes greater than Ohio's offense, but the defenses are equally as bad when compared to how good the offenses are, right? So I think Ohio is going to put up points because the UNLV defense is so terrible. But I think UNLV puts up points because the Ohio defense is good, but the UNLV offense is just unbelievably good. So Calandria is a must for me. I think he's going to end up being the highest owned player on the slate. I'm locking him in that spot, no doubt about it. Now, this is going to be a very unconventional way to build for me, but it's a 3-game slate. So I'm building in an unconventional way. The other player that we know has reaffirmed his commitment to this university is Jaden Thomas. Now, Jaden Thomas is an absolute demon on the field. The problem is he is a 50-50 chance to destroy you like he did against Boise State or win you the week like he did against Nevada with, a 42 burger. No telling what you get out of this. He's had an 11 catch game, for goodness sakes. I mean, the kid is explosive as it gets. I'm playing him because I want to win the slate. I'm not going to play scared. So I'm going to play Calandria with Jaden Thomas. I think it's a fun way to stack the game. Maybe because Calandria ends up being so owned, I would imagine in the 80 to 90% range, given that Brock Lowry ran for 100 against him. Keel Kelly ran for 96. Keel Kelly, if you're not familiar, is more of an athlete, plays at Ball State. He ran for a good amount of yards against Ohio as well. I just think Jaden Thomas is able to break off multiple runs as well. He had a better breakaway rate than Jeremiah Love did on the season. So he's an absolute freak. Optimally for us, if we're playing them together, you really would love to see Calandria hit Thomas on a screen pass and break one off. Watch to make sure he plays, but at the end of the day, because he's already kind of reaffirmed and re-upped his commitment, saying he's coming back next year with Calandria in an announcement, I do expect both to play. So I feel great about both of them being active in this spot. Wide receiver wise on UNLV, it's been pretty consistent. I will say it has definitely shrank. That's not to say you're not going to get screwed. I'm not playing any UNLV wide receiver, but be daggone if they are, like, one of them's going to pop. I just don't know who. Jaden Bradley's the most likely. He's the most consistent, but at the same time, he ends up being the most expensive every week. And he's one celebration away from not playing at all during the game because Dan Mullen gets mad at him routinely. Oh no, he's playing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Myron, Calandria is a lock. We know he's going to play because he's already said he's coming back and signed a new deal to play at UNLV next season. He's in. I know that. Thomas, I'm fairly certain's in because both of them have already said they're coming back to UNLV for next year. They're not entering the portal. They already have new deals. Everything NIL's already done. I guess the Fertitas got that deal done already. No Matthew Sluka situations on this team at this point. Day Day Reynolds, kind of the number two, but I have played him before when he got me a donut. So he makes me nervy. Very nervous on Day Day Reynolds. I don't trust him. I personally am more of a Troy O'Meary guy. I like his deep shots. He runs a lot of routes. He's on the field a lot more than Day Day Reynolds. I've watched way too much UNLV football this year. Troy O'Meary would be the guy that I would take as the number two shot on this team. And oddly enough, I don't know if Gums is going to play. I wouldn't count on it. Lions, he's on the field a good amount. Don't love him, but it's possible he gets there. I think JoJo Earl's um, impact on this roster needs to be understood. That the last 3 weeks of the season, he really was on the field a lot more, getting more targets. I think JoJo Earl's building to something. Is this the spot that he blows up? I think you can take shots on Earl. I wonder what I end up doing in the two gamer. I might end up on some JoJo Earl. Myron knows where I'm going with this. Myron's a man after my own heart, I will say. So look, I've played this song and dance many a time, and they're the two highest projected quarterbacks on Slate. I also, on the UNLV side, play one wide receiver if you're going to, because you're just hoping you get it right. So for me, it's either Bradley, O'Meary, or Earl. I probably Bradley's clear number one if you have the salary, but otherwise I would go Earl or O'Meary. I don't really care which one you would go to. Now, the question is, I think Navarro plays in this game. He's got at best a CFL pedigree coming to him, and he's petitioned for another season of football. So I think Navarro plays. I feel pretty good about that. I want both of them. Where I might lose some of you is I mentioned that this game's pretty bad. Pretty bad. Sia Bangura has a monster workload, and I'm a big Sia Bangura fan. Obviously, he's the thumbnail. Look at the workload, man. I mean, he's going to have 20 plus touches, and he's just too good. So I'm playing both of them. I don't know how not to. I think you have to play both of them. I think it is so sacrilegious to me to play Calandria with Thomas and Navarro with Bangura. But these are two of the best running offenses. I think you can play Hendricks with them. What I'll tell you is I might end up on that. There's a way to do that. So, now you got me thinking, Myron. I don't hate playing Hendricks with him because look at early in the season where he's so let's use this Eastern Mich game and the Northern Illinois game because he has double-digit catches. So let's use 10-25, 10-18, and 10-4 against Ball State. We'll take all those games. So what's Bangura's numbers in those games? 27, 35, and 8. So 2 out of the 3, they were able to support all of them, especially that Eastern Mich game where he had 27 for Navarro, 37 for Bangura, and like 27 for Hendricks. So like the Eastern Mich game, and 36 for Hendricks. So they're able to support all 3. They're the big 3 very clearly in this spot. Hendricks has almost a 40% target share on the season, which is just absolutely insane. But In November, he was absolutely terrible. Now that has more to do with the weather in the MAC by comparison to going to Frisco. It's going to be a lot different. So I don't. I think you can play Hendricks. I think it's very viable. If I was playing multiple teams, I probably will. I already see how I would end up playing this. I'm just trying to decide. So there's going to have to be three ways. I'm going to come up with a few different options. Yeah, they should be. Well, they are basically the whole offense, but there is one guy, Rodney Harris, who is a huge pivot option away from Hendricks. So Harris is playing all the snaps as well and not leaving the field, and he's more of the deep shot guy. So while he didn't produce late, they just weren't throwing him the football. It was all Hendricks. He did have some of these bigger games against Miami of Ohio, Eastern Mich, like Ball State. He was better than some of this stuff. So like, there's some guys, some shots in here. If you wanted to take it, I don't think you need to. I don't think I would, but I can already see. So let's talk pairings because this is what I'm going to play. Is this the question is what's my pairing going to be with it? You've got Hendricks. So pairing number one, I'm keeping these all in the dome here. Pairing number one is JoJo Earl and Chase Hendricks. I think that's a great option to pair together. I think that's viable because now you get kind of like a little trio action. You're playing that game shoots out for sure. I wish I could get Trayshawn Hurry, but I can't. But I don't mind playing JoJo Earl based on his talent in this spot. You could say, hey, I don't want to play JoJo Earl. That would lead you to Treadway, like we talked about on the Toledo side, if you really want to take that shot. Yeah, I like Duncan Brune too, but I don't think you can play him. So if Bangura's out, you're going Duncan Brune. Oh, which that viability, you know what that makes it super viable for is, let's just say Bangura's out, right? Let's just say Bangura's out. We're going to go Brune, boom. And then, what would be perfect is if you could do that. That would be optimal if you had that swap capability, would be to go, if you went down to Brune, you could get to Bradley and Hendricks. I would love that if that was the swap option. But otherwise, I guess you're going to end up probably picking like an O'Meary in that spot. I would definitely swap off of JoJo Earl if if we ended up getting word that Bangura was inactive. I'm really leaning towards this. It makes a ton of sense in the dome. It's just so much upside on that side there. So if I didn't do that, let's just say I'm not going that direction. I don't particularly want to stack multiples of Southern Miss or Western Kentucky wide receivers. I do like the game environment. I might play one. Maybe it would be like a Noah Myers, or maybe it would be a KD Hutchinson. But I don't love the 3,900 options. I really think the way that I would play this is, what do I do if we get word that one of these guys is active or inactive even? So let's just say Boykins, I think, makes things interesting. So if you Boykins and you got 5,600 left, I'm not going Carl Chester in that spot. I'd be tempted to do that. That's one way that I'd be very tempted to go, is Boykins and Lacey. So that's definitely a spot that I'd be interested in. Now, reminder, if you were doing that, move Jaden Thomas or Bangura. For my OCD, I would prefer to put Bangura down here. And I basically would play it this way if I was going with any of those three Louisville running backs. So if Duke Watson was the one active, I'd play Duke Watson here and do it that way. I'd play Jennings here if I wanted to play Jennings, or I'll play Boykins. Let's just say all three are out. I would prefer Boykins. So I would go Boykins there and then that. Do I love that? No, I'm not super enthused by it. But I know that Lacey's going to get a monster target share and kind of has the similar upside. Ooh, you've heard Isaac Brown's playing? I think Isaac Brown's basically the most, like, the least likely, in my opinion, to play. That'd be my guess. I would save him because he's like, well, you got people saying Isaac Brown touchdowns. Oh, wow. Okay, we got a new update, boys. New update. Whoa. Okay, Isaac Brown is playing. Yes. So Isaac Brown's mom, Sabrina Jefferson, is saying he is playing. You got Jeff Brom, the Michigan rumors flying. You got Isaac Brown playing. I mean, who the heck knows? Okay, hang on. We got tons of news here. All right, let's see. We're breaking this down live. Let's see what we got, because there's also reports saying the other stuff. The other guys are going to play too. All right. That's what it seems like. So this person's saying most of the entire team minus Bell is playing. Isaac Brown's back. Okay. Isaac Brown's playing. His mom's saying he's going to play. Everything's saying he's going to play. Isaac Brown and Keywan Brown are both expected to suit up today. So we got both Browns. Interesting. So both Browns expected to play. Okay, so where does that leave us? So let's just say, for grins, let's say Isaac Brown's active. Where does that land me? I mean, I'd love to play Isaac Brown. Don't get me wrong. Kid's a stud. Just an absolute stud. What does 3,800 get me? Morris Gums, Peterson. Peterson's okay. Meh. Not interested. Super interested. Collins is going to play. Don't love it. Lions is fine. I'd love to be able to play Trayshawn Hurry. Can't though. Probably. You're probably ending up on JoJo Earl. Yeah, the spread went flying up. Yeah, it went from 8.5 to 10, and then to 11.5. How much work does he get though? You know what I mean? I almost want that confirmed. I think you're really just deciding on these two spots, in my opinion. Now, the question is, at that point, do I want to go from Henry to Hutchinson? Because I'll have the salary to do it. I mean, that's like a decision you're going to be able to make. You know what I mean? I think it's viable. I think the only locks are that for me. I'm locking this. Outside of that, it's got to be a decision on where do you want to go at wide receiver and running back. So I think you probably end up, if Isaac Brown's really playing. Yeah, it says will play. Oh, Mark Blakenbaker is of ESPN Louisville. Huh. I mean, he's coming back for next year, so it makes sense that he'd want to play. It makes sense he's playing. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. I hear you, Myron. Hey, Mama. If Mama said we're playing, we going. We riding. So then that leaves you with this question. So let's just say that's locked right here. This is where things get interesting. I really wish you could go Chase Hendricks at that point now, and then I could just play around with it. But all right, so let's just say at this point, what are your options? So you got Lacey. I mean, I don't like anything in the 4K ish range at the bottom of it. So I think you're kind of landlocked here. Because otherwise, you'd have to go like Day Reynolds or O'Meary with Musa Berry, and I don't really particularly care for Musa Berry. I think you're far better off just spending your money on like a KD Hutchinson, um, who gets so much volume, or a Matthew Henry. I'm just a Henry believer. I think you're choosing between one of these two. I'd have to think about that. And then I think you're going to end up on JoJo Earl. I don't think I want two Louisville guys. I just don't think I do. I think I would prefer to go Lions or Earl and make that decision and just put that decision off because Earl's usage has really gone up uh, over the last month of the season. He's what? I mean, he's got like almost half of his receiving production over the last month of the year, you know? So he's really just gotten better, better and better. I think I would prefer Earl if I was going to punt a receiver spot. I would like to be able to say I want to do one of the Louisville wideouts that's cheap, but man, like going Trayshawn Hurry would be tough. It's just such a risk. That last spot, it just absolutely sucks. I'll be honest, it sucks. I would love to be able to do this, but I don't think I can. It's just not enough volume. I mean, there's not any volume here either, but at least I know he's going to be on the field and he's explosive as crap. So I would give me that. It's a better game environment. Give me the cheap guy. Yeah, I mean, Keywan Brown being expected to suit up makes things interesting too. You know, I don't think you can go. I don't think you can go cheap Louisville running back now, obviously. So then the question is it possible? Hang on. Here's the two ways to do this, I guess, in theory. Let's say you're just playing those two. So you play that. I think this is the only other way to play this. And then play JoJo Earl. So I think you're playing JoJo Earl no matter what. The question is do you want Isaac Brown and KD Hutchinson? Or do you want Chase Hendricks and Matthew Henry? Now, beauty of this entire slate. This is the beauty. I can play this exact team that's on the screen for the 2-gamer, and then I play the Louisville one in the early slate. Easy peasy. That's how you get your exposure. You change your exposure that way. Look at that. I mean, what more could you ask for, people? What more could you ask for? What a lovely day. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day. Let me see. I'm gonna pull FanDuel because I actually do want to talk about that for a second, but then I gotta go here in a minute. Oh, I got $3 bonus cash. I'll use that for Sunday or Saturday. All right, let's see. I'm just gonna pull this. All right, let's share this tab real quick. Thank you. I'm gonna play Calandria. Let's see here. I'd play Jaden Thomas over Van Gura. Isaac Brown now at 6,900. I mean, that's like a free square. Let's see. I don't love Hendricks. I want touchdowns. Metcalf, sure. Why is this a tough build? What's so tough about this? I mean, there's nothing tough here. You could go Osborne and just make it super simple. Yeah, that's the thing. I just don't know that Hurry. I love Trayshawn Hurry as a player. Um, and maybe I do that just to get away from JoJo Earl, but that's one of those situations where I end up defaulting to later stuff, just personally. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get Hendricks, and that's the problem. The problem area in this whole situation is everybody's trying to get Hendricks. I don't mind playing Henry, and then that would leave me with what, 5,800. Look at that. I mean, I get Noah Myers and Henry, or I can get Treadway and Henry, Musa Berry and Henry, JoJo Earl and Henry. Like, all of them are perfectly fine. This is an easy build on FanDuel. As far as, you got tons of salary. Yeah, you're not hurting for salary on FanDuel whatsoever. No, you got tons of it. Tons and tons of salary. You can go here, 72. That gives you 66. You could go Collins. I mean, I don't like that range. I think Hutchinson would be the guy that I didn't play. I would definitely play this, and then I would just pick your poison between Treadway, Myers, Barry, JoJo Earl. Any of them perfectly fine. Yeah, I don't love. I love Trayshawn Hurry, the player. I mean, that's me, but that's priors from him being at San Jose State last year, right? Um, I really did think he might end up being a guy who could work his way into being the number two. Didn't really happen. Um, I liked his profile personally, but it kind of hasn't worked out yet. So I probably end up on JoJo Earl more than I would want, just because of the somebody sits out in that one. So, I mean, let's just say you wanted to do it. I don't mind taking shots on the double here, but I don't hate that either. But I probably just I'd stick to somebody in here, but probably something like that. Where is Rodney Harris is right there. You could technically, what is that, 5,800? You could go down from Henry to Bradley. 61, that gets you to like Micah Davis. I don't like that. Yeah, I would stick into this, lean into that. I mean, there's no point in going up here. I just stick down there. This is pretty simple. That's pretty explosive set of players. All right, well, I'll play a buck for that. Why not? The old helmet sticker. Y'all just made me build a lineup. I'll do it. So anyway, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And I will build this stuff out. I am looking forward to tomorrow's game the most. I will preview that game tomorrow. It's Hawaii on Hawaii Crime. I'm looking forward to it. Micah Alihado. We get our last look at the Tokyo Toe before he goes and plays wherever the heck he's going to play, hopefully somewhere. And we get Sagapola Tele back home, Nick Rolovich going back to Hawaii. Like, what a set of storylines on Christmas Eve for some of the just best of the best. So looking forward to it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Good luck today. And pay attention to the news, because I think it's going to get hairy and wild at some point